What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Rollin' with the Punches. I'm Jesse Punch. This is my co-host this week, the SO Pup, who you probably won't hear from much, but if you head over to the YouTube page and watch this in video, you will get to see his very cute, very smiley face right now. I'm so happy that you guys are here. I'm coming off of a few awesome weeks of traveling for work. We've seen some incredible racing the last couple weeks here in the NASCAR world, both at Dover and then the historic finish, the closest finish in NASCAR Cup Series history at Kansas. Amazing. And then last weekend was Throwback Weekend at Darlington, which, if you know me, you know is always one of my favorite weekends of the entire year. Just like getting to see well, first of all, Darlington's awesome. Love getting to go to that racetrack. But then getting to like step back in time in Darlington and see everybody all dressed up in their throwback outfits and all the throwback paint schemes. It really is just such a fun weekend. So loved it. And speaking of throwback outfits, we have some pretty cool content coming to the YouTube page. We just posted the first video of a series that we've been working on, where I'm basically going around Charlotte and highlighting some of the vintage shops that I like to shop at. I get a lot of questions on where I buy some of my NASCAR pieces, so I thought I'd just take you guys along with me and highlight some of my buddies that own vintage shops around the area. So go over to the Rollin' YouTube page to check out the first video in that series, and of course, be sure to subscribe so that you can keep up with what we're doing. I'm really excited about this week's guest. I've known Ryan Vargas for many, many years, and I wanted to bring him in specifically now, though, because as you'll hear us talk about, we're seeing a very different Ryan this year than we have seen, especially the last couple years. He just has a completely renewed spirit. He's doing something a little different. He's running full-time in the Euro Series, so he's literally getting to travel all over Europe and drive race cars, which is just so freaking cool. He's gonna tell you much more about that. But I also wanted to bring Ryan in because he's somebody that I've always really admired. His ability to self-promote or market himself. He really has just had so much success when it comes to the balance of how little he's been able to get in the race car, but how much he's been able to gander attention from both sponsors and just people within the racing world. So we talk a little bit about that. Talk a lot about social media. It was just a very well-rounded interview, and I hope that you guys enjoy this opportunity to get to know Ryan Vargas a little more and hear what he's up to this season. So that's enough from me. Let's get into the interview. Introducing Ryan Vargas. You're kind of the master of like self-marketing.
Yeah.
Can you give me your elevator pitch?
Oh God.
Give me your like Shark Tank. Like I'm Mark Cuban and dun 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 dun
Well,
dun and
so
you just walk in the tank.
The biggest thing, like I tell everybody, it's like, look, at the end of the day, I'm not selling stickers on race cars. I'm selling a program. I'm selling a business plan that goes for 1 to 2 years to start, and then if we go beyond that, that's when you start looking. Okay, now here's the 5-year plan. And I've been fortunate to work with some really good groups that like have backed a lot of that stuff. Like these guys on my head, Critical Path, they jumped on board in 2022 and stuck with me since then. They stuck with me through last year's venture into the truck series. We had some fun there, but the real I would say where things really came to a head was when we did the Euro Series races last year. We got a lot of publicity, a lot of attention. But behind the scenes, we've been working. I mean, I'm in their Slack. You know what I mean? Like we're going back and forth with ideas, trying to figure out things to help them.
You were way more than just driving a race car.
Yeah,
like, you were so involved with your sponsors.
It's literally 80-90%. Getting the ingredients. 15% baking, and then 5% serving. You know what I mean? Like it's just
that makes sense.
Like I think Brad Perez tweeted something like that. It was like that's basically how it is.
5%. The great what was Aristotle, like prophet of our days?
Yeah,
Brad Perez.
But like at the end of the day, it has to be. You have to be able to build something around the people that work with you, so that it works for them. When you're working with a lot less, when you come to a group and say, look, this is what I'm currently doing. This is what this is what I have at the moment. But if we were to work together for X amount of months or X amount of years, we could reach this point, this certain point. Yes, the race car is there. That's the shiny cherry on top. The real business, the real program is everything we do leading up to that.
And at the end of the day, it's a how can I help you, you help me. It really is, and that goes way beyond just you driving that race car.
Yeah, it's like, okay, how can I represent the brand on the racetrack and deliver the desired results? But also, how can I help you guys get a client? How can I help
Sunday
you
to
guys?
Friday when
Yeah,
you're not just on the track on Saturday.
basically, yeah, and it's all those different things.
So going back to something you said, when I'm talking to a sponsor or a potential sponsor, and I tell them who I am, what I'm doing, where I've been, but also then where we can go.
Yeah,
So where is that right now? Like let's say Roland has $1 million.
yeah,
I'm not saying we don't.
yeah.
I'm also not saying we do. But let's say we do, right? And
Yeah.
you're talking to me. What would you tell me as of right now?
So I would basically say it's like, look, I'm Ryan. Like, hello, I'm Ryan Vargas. I'm a NASCAR driver. I have 70 plus starts in NASCAR's top divisions. I race. I raced in Xfinity. I've raced in trucks. I now race internationally, and I haven't had some of the big opportunities in some of the and this is no disrespect to any of the teams I've been with. I've ran with the majority of smaller organizations with less resources, and that's not an insult. That's not a negative. That's just how it is. That's part of the sport, and I know that with what I've done behind the wheel, I can go out and maximize a day and maximize the equipment and do what I can to elevate a program. But at the same time, I have also worked with the TikToks of the world, the Reddits of the world, the Alvin Kamaras, the Swan Securities, the Lyrgus Securities, the Critical Path Securities. I've worked with all these groups. I've worked with dozens of companies in a variety of industries, and I've had wide ranges of success. They all have believed in me. They trusted me with their name. Why don't you? Why can't you?
It goes along with what you said, how every sponsor is going to have a different goal, right? They're not only that, but they're also all going to have a different perspective on racing and what they want out of that relationship. So it's, evident here just in the first couple minutes that we've talked that you have to be someone, and you are someone that understands business and marketing just as much, if not more, than driving the race car. And you mentioned TikTok, you mentioned Alvin Kamara, but then you also just said, I have only ever run for smaller organizations. Smaller in the sport, we say maybe more underfunded organizations. Well, we call them underfunded, but then you're putting some of the biggest names, professional athletes, TikTok alone on these race cars. How are you doing that?
Blind luck. No, it's the TikTok deal was really unique because that came during a time where we were all locked inside, right? That was during.
Yeah, take me through that, because I know we've talked about it in the past, but truly, like, I love this story. Start from the beginning. Talk to me about this TikTok.
Yeah, I remember. So like, we're just getting back into racing, right? I think it was May, and Ryan Pastano, who's now the graphic designer of Alpha Prime Racing, months prior to that, he had made a post saying like, hey, like, what if TikTok were to sponsor, the one NASCAR driver who's on TikTok? Because at the time, I was one of probably 2 drivers on there.
This 2020. It was like very much still kind of coming up.
I adopted TikTok into my like brand very early because I knew there was no racing on there. Like, there was no race teams, there was no drivers, and by no I mean very minimal. And I was like, let me try and do this. And at the time, I had like 19,000 followers. Like, it was probably my biggest like number-wise social at the time. And so he put a little thing out there, and literally by word of mouth, it somehow got to the folks at TikTok. They saw it. And my assumption here, this is me assuming, you look at the year 2020, every company had these big marketing plans, all these big events and all that stuff, TikTok included, and now they ought to be shut down. So now they have all this marketing budget. They have all these things that need to be, sent out. So I think it was a little bit of, hey, we brought together a good, a cool marketing idea to them. But I think we also hit them at the right spot, the right time, right? If you were to come to TikTok today with the same deal, I don't think that they would really think about it. And that's just me being realistic. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity that they presented, because at the time I had never had a other than the local companies I had worked with, I had never had a company like that on my race car.
Mhm.
I never had I mean, you have to think at the time I only had about five or six Xfinity starts.
Mhm.
And we were running really well. We had a lot of speed, but I wasn't a JRM driver or JGR
Sure.
driver or RCR. I was running, for JD Motorsports. We were having a really good year at the time, but at the same time, we were still a smaller group. And so you have a 19-year-old kid who's just getting into the sport, never had like a real big sponsor,
Mhm.
and they're coming to me and they're like, "All right, well, tell me how this works. Let like we want to learn more."
Well, and you were the only athlete, the
Yeah,
first and only athlete at the time that TikTok
yeah.
had
I believe I'm still
represented.
the only athlete that they've directly sponsored,
That's awesome.
which is really cool. I definitely
Mhm.
wear that with like a badge of honor. Um,
Because we say that to say they're not talking to everybody here.
no,
Just putting TikTok
I
logos
know
on
they
everything.
sponsor Aston Martin now,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. Which I mean, Ryan Vargas, Aston Martin. At the time, it was really unique how that all worked, and we were able to put together an incredible campaign. I'm very thankful for the support that NASCAR corporate,
Mhm.
like they embraced it as well on their end. Like they were like, we want to amplify this because this is a big deal, and I think the coolest thing for me at the time, and you could sit here and argue, well, why didn't you take that money somewhere else? Why didn't you go to this team or that team? And it's like, you know, you could sit here and say that all you want, but at the same time, JD is where I got my start.
Mhm.
That is the team that I had kind of hitched my wagon to. They're a smaller group. Johnny, has run that team for many, many years, and I loved the idea of being able to bring such a massive company to that team, the team
Mhm.
that got me my start and
Mhm.
really, helped me get into the sport.
They poured so much into you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think this would be a really cool thing. And I knew that given the resources, they can compete. But it was like, man, like what we put into this car is really good. And
Mhm.
that's because of what TikTok was able to do. We go to Texas. We run, like legitimately, we were like 12th or 13th on raw pace and then finished 8th, which, for, a smaller group like JD, top 10s do not come often.
Those are like wins. I
Those are
mean,
legitimately wins. We
truly.
celebrated that like it was a win.
Yeah.
Like it was a huge, huge, huge day.
Mhm.
And for us to go out there and be as competitive as we were, and to get TikTok on their socials, they were sharing it and stuff, right? Like it was just such a unique timeline. But to backtrack a little, so yeah, TikTok was my first real sponsor, right? And that in itself changed the entire trajectory of my career because it was my first time negotiating. Like it started as a one race deal, then it was like, oh, what if we do 3 races, and then it ended with, let's do 6. Let's
Wow.
finish the season doing this.
That's impressive too to go from TikTok saying
Yeah,
1 to 6
yeah.
races.
Well,
Wow.
because it was like, okay, do we want to do one race and put like so much money into it and do all this stuff? And I could sit here, but at the time, I'm looking like these negotiations are happening in, um, I'd say August. I'd say late July, August, around that time.
Mhm.
These like negotiations, like it was a pretty quick turnaround for a lot of these things, but these negotiations were happening, and I'm like, do we want to put all this money into one race and chase a win? And if you were to ask me that today, I would say absolutely.
Really?
I would have, like, if you were to ask me that today, like if I were presented with that opportunity today, with all the starts that I have,
Mhm.
I would take that and go and try and chase a win.
Really?
1000%. But at that time, I was on start number 7, or
Right.
6 or 7, whatever it may be. I was not capable of winning an Xfinity race at that
Mhm.
time.
And
I
seat
can
time, getting more experience
Yeah.
was really what's most
I
important
would have
then.
rather them sponsor all those races, get that consistent marketing out, and get that valuable experience in a JD car that we put a lot of resources in, because now we put all those resources into it and we're able to actually have a pretty good piece.
Mhm.
Like that legitimately was a really good car that we had at the time. We unloaded some bullets and I was really happy with that. But that program in itself changed the trajectory of my career because it showed to people Ryan Vargas can manage a deal. Ryan
Mhm.
Vargas can put together a deal, and if a giant company like TikTok s- trusts this kid, because I signed the contract, I was still 19.
Yeah.
My first race with TikTok was like a week after my birthday when I turned 20. So at 19 years old, they are willing to trust me with their name.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty crazy. So already that suddenly it's like, okay, now I'm able to get in the door a lot easier.
Yeah, that legitimacy that brings you is huge. And not just to other sponsors, right? For you to come forward and say, I've worked with TikTok, but even just within the sport, within the garage, within team owners, people
Everyone
that are
knows
looking,
about the TikTok deal.
Right. People that are looking to fill seats know now that you can bring money.
Yeah, I can find it, I can put it all together. I could also execute the deal, because it's one thing of finding money and getting it. It's another of actually accomplishing what's set out.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's so many times where people will, oversell, right? Oversell what they do, what they can't do. I would rather over deliver in a lot of senses.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get on me. They're like, you do a little too much for some of these people, but it's like, I would rather do too much and guarantee that I'm going to get more out of a program, actually deliver more than what they asked for, than try and deliver exactly what they ask for and call it good, because then you're not going to be able to have that relationship build.
Right. And that's evident in the fact that a lot of the sponsors that you have now have been with you for these longer deals.
Yeah.
And just even throughout your career, they're even the TikTok going from a 1 race deal to a 6 race deal. Most of the time, these sponsors lock in for more than just a one and done.
And that's the valuable part, right? Like, you're able to build a brand around what you're doing. You're able to be consistent, and that's important.
Mm-hmm. So right now, you are running full time.
Yes.
Just in the Euro Series.
Yeah.
Let's just start with the question of, did you ever think?
No.
I mean, in the what?
No.
In the 8 years that I've even known you, I
Yeah.
never would have thought that you'd be running in the Euro Series.
No, but in its own way, it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, we've done all these Xfinity starts, we've done these truck starts. I've been in a part-time role for many, many years now. Some seasons I've run a ton of races, some I've run a handful, right? And I got to the end of 23, and it was a good year. We had some very good highlights, some lowlights, whatever. But we did the Euro deal at the end of 2023. We did Germany, Oschersleben, and Zolder. And Critical Path Security, who had signed on to do a handful of races in in truck, I approached them and I said, look, there's this opportunity to go to Germany. I know, they have some very close family ties, being from Germany and stuff like that. And I knew it was a special race for them. And I was like, look, this may be a unique opportunity to really brand something entirely different, because, and I'm just going to be very blunt here, I've done the whole running Xfinity and truck and making the most out of the equipment and running in that 15th to 25th range for about 4 years now. And that is incredibly valuable to any young racer. And I will always say that is important to be consistent and be in that range. Now you go into year 5 or year 6, whatever it was. I've lost track at this point. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at everything. And you remember the Germany thing, how big of a deal that was media-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Like, NASCAR was pushing it, all these other outlets were pushing it. Like, it was a really big deal when we went there. And then
I think even getting there, I don't know about you, but I was surprised by the reaction and response when we were there.
Yeah, not only were the fans really interested in it, but the other drivers were super open.
Yes.
Right? They were super welcoming. And on top of that, then you have the race, right? I showed to myself that I could road race a little bit. I was able to really pick it up thanks to being able to use data for the first time. And we were able to grow this whole deal. And so it was a resounding success going out there doing Germany. And I went to Zolder, and it was, again, another resounding success. We just had so much fun. The sponsor got so much content and overall just value out of that race.
And you said, it was different.
It was entirely
there's no
different.
other race car driver, from their perspective of competition-wise, or sponsor that's putting out content from overseas, showing all of these German NASCAR fans that a lot of people, when I was posting, they didn't even know that there were NASCAR fans in Germany.
This is what told me that I made the right decision. So I keep jumping around in these stories, but
it's all right. I'm keeping up.
But so, like I said, at the end of 23, my sponsors and I were talking. We were talking about what we want to do. Oh, do we want to do trucks? Do we want to do Xfinity? And like, I was leaning more towards Xfinity. And then I got to thinking with, I was talking to the group at 3F. We were talking with my sponsors, and we really sat down and thought about it. We're like, man, like, we could go full time in Europe. Like, we could do this. And with the amount of publicity we got doing those races, with the amount of experience I gained going out there, why not? Right.
Yeah.
And I looked at what we had, on the table in terms of, the partnership. I looked at what we had on the table in terms of the offer to go racing out there. And it was a no-brainer. It was an absolute no-brainer, because I do that or I go run part-time Xfinity and truck for the 5th, 6th season.
Right. And you know what that looks
And
like.
I know what that looks like,
And you
right?
know what that feels like.
Yeah. And I can't, and that's not, full-time, that's not part-time in a, and again, no disrespect, in winning equipment. It's not in that, unless I go to a super speedway and decide to try and lead the whole thing.
Right.
And again, that's no disrespect.
You're not building and growing.
I'm not growing at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
It's not moving that needle forward. Is it valuable for me to be out there? Absolutely. I'm going to take opportunities that present themselves. But I also have to sit here and say, if I'm going to build a year around a program, I need to do something entirely different. And that's when we landed on the Euro deal. And right away, the biggest thing that showed to me I did the right thing, every race I went to in 2023, I would see, colleagues in the garage, other, team members and stuff like that. They say, oh man, like, what are you up to this year? Like, what are you racing? Like, who are you running for? I'm like, oh, I'm doing track. Oh, you're doing this. Cool. That's awesome. I go to the track now. It's like, man, that race in Spain was nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are watching what I'm doing. People are giving a shit about what I'm doing, and people like what I'm doing. People actually know what Ryan Vargas is doing this year.
Right. Well, and I think a couple things stand out to me in one, in everything you're saying, but then two, also just the way that you're saying it. It seems like this year, you've always been around before this year. You've always been around, whether you're running part-time or not. And that is one of the great things about you. And that is why you've had so much success and have so many relationships, is because you pour so much back into the sport, because you know that it's going to pay off. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, I always see with the racetrack, even if you're not racing that weekend, you're there helping out a team. You're there just doing whatever you can do to be there.
Yeah.
But in that, you spend so much time pouring back into everybody else. Yeah. And it's almost like this year now, you're still doing a lot of that, but you get to, it's Ryan Vargas's time now. It's the Ryan Vargas show. Like, and you get to have something that you take ownership over. And and knowing you too, I can remember so many times, seeing you at the racetrack, especially in the last 2 years. And you just seemed so discouraged. Yeah. And that's only because I know you, right? Like, you're obviously wonderful to everyone and talking to everybody, but as your friend, I can tell. I'm like, I know that Ryan has got to be, he's a little off right now. Yeah. And so it's exciting then to see you have this opportunity to be highlighted, to take ownership over something, to have an entire season to be able to look ahead and grow and build on things. Exactly. But then on top of that, not to say that this 3F car, because there's a lot of background and business side of things of how, the car is built and where you're getting the parts from and everything that we don't really need to get into. But you're really not this underfunded, little engine that could now. You get to take ownership over something and have a shot at it in this Euro Series.
I mean, let's put it this way. The Euro Series, so all those cars are spec. All the parts are spec. Everything's from the same supplier, down to the motor, down to the nut and bolt, right? It is all from the same supplier. There's very little that you can do outside of what they bring to the table. And so for me, I go out there and I'm like, okay, your team has to put your car together right. And I have a lot of faith in the group that we built over there, because we have our it's a joint effort between 3F and Blake and Mullen's Race Planet. And Jeffrey, everybody over there, they do an incredible job making sure that the car is going to be as competitive as they possibly can get it. I got my first experience with track limits. I had a lap deleted, but that lap that got deleted, and it was for track limits in turn 1. I know exactly when it happened, and it was my fault. But I went off track by like that much. Like, it wasn't anything. It wasn't what made me go that fast. Let me put it that way. But that lap would have put me third quick on a road course. I am not a road course guy, but I know that the car is good enough. I know that I myself as a driver am now maximizing what I can get out of the car. I remember getting out of the car in Belgium and calling my mom and saying, I have my Mojo back.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I'm doing this. Me running, going to Spain and being as quick as I am, running with these really fast road course guys. Like, these guys are uber talented. Me going full time and traveling internationally, in my opinion, is far higher up that ladder than being part time in Xfinity.
Million
Because
percent.
I run an Xfinity race this week. Next week, what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, congrats. Ryan finished 25th this week.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And as we've already established, and this is no slight to the teams, this is just the nature of the sport,
Mhm.
right? Things happen. Like, you were at the mercy of
Yep.
your race car. You're at the mercy of preparation. I can remember a number of weeks ago, I believe it was at Richmond.
Yeah.
Yep.
Caught on fire.
Yep. And it's because I had just seen you before the race too, briefly chatting on
Yeah.
pit road, and you were like, "We actually have a really good car this week."
Yeah.
You were like, "This is the best car that I've been in with this team, I
Yeah.
think, and the best shot we've had." It's like
Yeah.
lap 5.
Yeah, lap 15, we like blew up, and
I just
you
was
know-
sitting in the media center like, oh.
yeah. I mean, but the thing is like, yeah, I'm disappointed in the moment, but I'm telling you, me doing this Euro deal, me doing everything that I did, this is extra
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Like, this year, my mindset is competing in Europe,
Right.
and like, so if I go out there and I have an issue like I did like I did there at Richmond and Phoenix, okay. For a while there, it stopped being fun for a little while, and now I'm back to having fun, and I'm driving whatever I want. I'm having a blast. Like, you can't beat that.
Finding something that gives you so much purpose for you, this Euro series, this ability to pour into and find confidence in, that then the other stuff doesn't dictate your emotions quite as much.
Yeah.
And like, that's something that I'm really working on this year is, finding, I'll say, creativity, for example. I love being creative, and this podcast has been a big part in that. And it's knowing that, like, I'll always have this, and I can come sit down on Tuesday and chat with you guys. But it's needing this project to not let everything I do at work be the up and the down and the highs and the lows, because it's too much.
Yeah.
And it gets, and like you said, it gets to be not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for you, and I can so relate to that sentiment of that kind of free feeling.
Yeah, there's no sense in me stressing over a part-time ride anymore because I got a full-time ride over in Europe.
Right.
And I'm happy with that.
And you know
love
your
it.
worth. Like, you know what you can do.
And here's the other half. I'm 23. I'm not married. I have a gorgeous girlfriend that I date. I don't have kids. I don't have all these things. This is the only time in my life where I can go and do these races overseas. I can go overseas, go to Rome in 2 weeks here. I'm going to go to Rome.
That's so cool.
And then follow that
to
up by
race cars.
Yeah, to go drive a race car.
What?
So now at 23 years old, I can travel the world with my girlfriend or with my family or with, my good buddies on the 3F side. We can travel, sightsee, make lifelong memories doing something that I never thought I would do, and drive race cars.
Yeah.
I'm having a blast.
That's so cool.
Again, this backtracks all the way to the beginning. This was a no-brainer to me doing it.
So much of what we talk about is you going out there, putting yourself out there, finding sponsors, understanding what you bring to the table, like what you talked about earlier with sponsors, and giving them realistic expectations, right?
Yeah.
But in doing that, you're real. You're very real on the internet about who you are, about how you perform on the weekends, and I guess in a way you could say that's part of the job.
Yeah.
Being a race car driver and being a public figure.
It's part of the job, but you have to like it.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like, we are in an era where social media dictates a lot of who you are. And
for good and for bad.
For good and for bad.
Yeah.
And if you are able to tell your story better than the next guy, more people are going to care. And I say this all the time because if you go online right now and look at like Racing Reference, right? Say you look at my Racing Reference. I have a 20th place, I think, average finish in truck and a 25th, 26th average finish in Xfinity, right? And you look at it and take out the equipment I'm in. Take out all that. Take out mechanical failures. Take out oh, we didn't have full allotment of tires this race.
Because that's sure as hell not listed on Racing Reference.
It's not.
Yeah.
Take out all that. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, Racing Reference isn't going to say, oh, yeah, he finished 20th, but, you know, the team, you know, for that team, that's a great day.
Right. There's
But
no context like that. Yeah.
It's just that. You have to take it at face value. Now imagine that. How should a racing fan give a shit about a 26th place average finish driver?
Mm-hmm.
How should they care about somebody who's running 25th on the weekends? Why do they care? Why should they care? And that's where me being able to show to people, hey, you know, I'm Ryan Vargas. Here's my life. Here's the race team. Here's what we got. Here's who I am. Here's our partners. That's important because not only do the fans start to care, they understand, oh my God, Ryan finished 18th. That's a top 20 day. Great job. Oh man, Ryan finished 25th. Ah, that's, you know, that's okay.
They're seeing the sport from a more well-rounded perspective.
Oh man, Ryan finished 32nd today. Oh, that's a rough day. That's not good.
Right.
Oh man, Ryan crashed. That's rare.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny. I love the people who like to troll online. They're like, oh, Ryan out here crashing again. And I whip out my crash tee. I'm like, brother, I've wrecked 4 times.
You're like, you've not been paying attention.
Knock on wood. That's not changing. But it's like, you know, you're able to communicate.
You're able to put the context there that isn't there in a stat book.
Exactly, and that's the biggest thing to me. And also too, like on TV, you know, I'm selling sponsorship for these races. I mean, I did perfect example. I did the Talladega truck race, and they televised qualifying. The only qualifying lap that didn't get televised was mine because I went to commercial. So now my job as a driver, how do I amplify that weekend?
Mm-hmm.
And that's with all the content I build out throughout the weeks. That was part of our Germany Talladega doubleheader. It was a huge marketing push. We did a ton of marketing behind the scenes. So, yes, having the car on TV was a gut punch for me because I worked really hard on it.
That's tough.
But my program was built to where we could have never been shown once, and I wouldn't have cared.
That wasn't going to make or break.
Yeah, that wasn't going to make or break it.
Relationship with you.
Yeah.
And good for you for having the marketing mind to see that. I mean, you're with everything else going on. You're qualifying the race car. There's that. But on top of all that, you have enough of a marketing mind to know, okay, I know now in hindsight that didn't make air. So in doing my job as a race car driver, I also need to do a little bit of extra to give back to them.
Yeah, and that's part of it. And that's part of it.
Here's where my brain goes, though, and all that, is that, you know, as we're sitting here and you're talking about, in a way, kind of trying to explain yourself, for lack of a better way to put it, and explain the scenario that you're in, you're solely, in this conversation, talking about sponsors. You're talking about, you know, wanting to, because in the grand scheme of everything, that is what matters, right?
1000%.
That is what matters. The fans... I'm not going to say that's not what matters. They're not putting you in the race car every week as far as financially, but you still have that uphill battle for you of trying to explain yourself and give that context to the fans because they're some of the loudest sometimes on social.
Absolutely.
How do you do that without it seeming like you're
whining?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing, you know. You don't want to you don't want to come across as whining, right?
Sure.
Because I'm never going to
argumentative with fans on social media.
I'm never unless they
deserve it.
Unless they deserve it. But you know, it's you have to walk that line, and there are some examples I've seen where they've gone over that line and sounded like that. You know, and I remember like I did like the Richmond race last year, right? You know, we were one of the fastest Tundras in the field on the long run, right? Which is great because we're racing as Tricon.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, those guys, you know, some of these big TRD back teams, like that was a big deal for us to be as quick as we were. And then we got caught up in an incident that wasn't showed on TV. So the viewer at home, they just see me go from being on the lead lap to now being 3 down. And they're like, oh, Ryan sucks. He's in the back. Now I have to go online and say, no, this is what happened. And this is just how it is. Yeah. I'm not going to fabricate something, you know, to make myself look better.
Right.
I would rather say I mess up and be honest with everybody than try and parade around and say, oh, the car was bad. I did everything I could. Right. The great Landon Castle told me that if a meteor comes out of the sky, it's your job to miss it. Yeah. And that's how I am.
Landon Castle, another great prophet of our day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Friend of the podcast.
Yes. Friend of the podcast. I do love Landon. I haven't seen him in ages.
Yeah.
Good kid.
Yep.
He's not a kid. He's a full grown man.
Yeah, he is older than
He
you.
is a man. Yes. Yeah. But going back to what you're saying though, because everything you're saying is beautiful and poetic on paper, and the ability to say, you know, here's my truth, and whether you want to take it is on you.
Yeah.
Is so much easier said than done, right?
1000%.
And I think your ability to have that vulnerability and that just blunt honesty of being able to go online and say I messed up comes with a lot of years though of building that thick skin, I have to imagine, and being okay with the idea of I'm gonna tell you guys online what happened, and you're gonna still say whatever it is that you want to say, and you're gonna be okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, you watch any professional sport, people hate certain players, people don't like certain players, and they're going to root against them, right? That is totally fine. There are going to be NASCAR fans out there who don't like Ryan Vargas, for whatever reason it may be. They may think I'm just some perennial backmarker. I'm a mid-pack hack. This guy who, got in the way of their favorite driver or something like that, or just... I don't care if somebody doesn't like me. Like, I want everybody to like me. But at the end of the day, I can't change that. Now, if somebody's going to annoy me or, like, harass me online or, bring up racial or insensitive comments, that's when it crosses the line and you're going to get dragged on social.
Which, and I will always support you in that because there's just zero room for hate. I just don't understand that. And I actually admire the fact that you're willing to clap back at those people.
Oh, I mean, I've had people say, like, I will hope you hit the wall and don't walk out. And it's like,
oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And I'll quote retweet it and be like, I bet.
Yeah.
Like,
my favorite line with those people when they, people will say stuff to me on social, and they'll critique something or other, or like, you're terrible, you're never your dad, like blah blah blah, whatever. It's always some like crusty old white man that like is named Craig or something, and so I'll like respond and I'll be like, thanks so much for the feedback, Craig, like appreciate it, just like they kill him with kindness kind of deal. But because you don't bitch and whine and moan about every single person on social media that comes at you, when you do clap back about the things that matter, like hate, like racism, that says more.
Absolutely. And that's when I clap back. That's when I clap back, and sometimes somebody will say something that's just like overtly stupid. Like someone will say like I remember when I posted that I was full-time in Euro, someone said like, oh, couldn't hack it in the States, man, downgrade, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if running full-time and full-time overseas and getting to travel the world is a downgrade, I would love to hear your idea of an upgrade.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. You're like, while the rest of the field is in Talladega, Alabama, I'm in like Valencia, so enjoy.
Yeah, I love Talladega, but I mean,
I know, I love Talladega, but
it's like, I don't know, I'm just way too happy to spend time worrying about that.
Well, and it's kind of like you said earlier, what these people think and say about you on social media does not dictate anything about.
No,
Denny Hamlin is not good at driving a race car just because you all boo him at driver intros.
Yeah.
Like he's still gonna go out there.
He's still gonna go
kick
win.
Ass. Yeah. Like, and they're just gonna boo even louder next week.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have any effect. But it's very admirable though, your ability to be as public as you are and take as many, for lack of a better word, take as many punches as you do, just because of the nature of the world we live in today.
I mean,
and to handle it so well.
Yeah, it like, don't get wrong, like it's easy to look at the negativity, but like at the end of the day, it's not worth your time.
Right.
Like it's not worth being able to. It's not worth taking time out of your day to read every hate comment because you're gonna get them. Like I said, like as any public figure or as any athlete, they're gonna be detractors, and that's fine. People could be a detractor of yours, but like I said, there's a line that can get crossed.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually was having this conversation with somebody recently about content and getting hate comments on it, and how it's almost like a badge of honor in a weird way, where sure, I can post a video and, my mom's going to say she loves it. And all
Yeah.
my best friends are going to say I look great. And then,
Mhm.
and all the people that follow you are going to be like, oh, great. Way to
Yeah.
go. Way to go, Jesse. Way to go, Ryan.
Yeah.
But if that video reaches a point where it's got like randos coming in and telling me that I'm annoying, and I'm like,
Yep.
this reached a new
Yeah,
audience,
this video is starting to pop off
Yeah,
here.
exactly. It's kind of like a little bit of a social media badge of honor that you're like, okay, look, people are going to talk shit. People are going to hate on literally every single thing that you do.
Yeah.
So if my content has reached that level of deserving some hate from
Yeah.
some Craig somewhere, then like,
Yeah.
so be it. I'll take it. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
By all means, engagement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But also like, and I don't want to get into like a whole conversation here about mental health, but I do think that's where you have been really great on social media and your ability to say like, I recognize that this doesn't bother me, but I also recognize that I'm human.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need to take breaks every once in a while. And I'm going to need to let you guys know when I'm not at 100% Vargas.
Yeah. And I like it's
that vulnerability is appreciated, I guess is what I'm saying.
I mean, for me, I want people to know like, what I'm going through, what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be 110% awesome, happy-go-lucky all the time. It's been like that a lot more lately, thankfully.
Because it's genuine. You're happy.
Like I've been enjoying what I'm doing. But there are days that are like you just feel like you've been just punched in the gut rigorously, and like there's nothing you can do about it. And so it's like I'm like sometimes it's just like, and I do it to a fault. Sometimes I'll like just put something out like that's a little like down and mopey, and then it's like crap.
And the texts start coming in. Are
and
you
then-
okay, man?
Yeah, and
You're
then I'm
like,
like,
"Oh,
and then
shit."
I'm like, dang it! Now I seem like a attention guy.
No, you never seem like an attention guy, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But like it's like I'm one of those guys that wears it on my sleeve, both to a fault and to a good side, and I would rather be like that than not show emotion at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people care about that.
Mm-hmm. And because you're willing to show it, somebody somewhere out there is just a little bit more willing to be vulnerable. So definitely don't ever change that. We need more of that in the sport. Yeah.
I do not plan on changing that.
We need more of that in the sport for sure. So what's next for you? Obviously, Euro Series. You've run how many? 2 races already this season?
Yeah, so 2 races. They do 2 races each weekend. So I just got done with the first 2 rounds. It was a demo derby. That was the first red flag they've had in like 5 years, I guess.
Wow, and it was
Something
a big
like
wreck.
that.
I saw it too, and you kind of squeezed through
I
it a
squeezed
little bit.
through. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't get all the way through it.
Yeah, what's up?
I mean, it just sprained my wrist. So
For those just listening, by the way, he's wearing a
brace.
small brace on his wrist. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been. The weekend was really good. We had a ton of speed. We showed that we can compete. And for those who don't know, so we got wiped out turn 1, lap 1, drove all the way back to the field to 12th, and eventually 11th after tech. So I fell to 22nd and then passed 10 more cars and got back. Like I was
road
pissed.
course.
I was on a road course. I was an animal.
The structure of Euro Series is so different.
Yeah.
You're not looking at like, oh, I had another 75 laps on this road course to pass. These are short
They're
sprint races.
They're sprints. It was 18 laps. This one was 18 laps. So
to you to have that kind of
bad
day and then recover in that amount of time shows a lot.
Yeah, and so we get done with the race. We're P11, and so I remember getting out of the car. I was heated. I was pissed, and because for those who don't know, the lineup for race 2 on Sunday is set by your fastest lap in race 1.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. I had my fender ripped off, so that's already going to kill your straightaway speed. And then I was passing every other lap. Every other lap, right? So even though we were one of the fastest cars in the race pace, like by the end of the race, I was actually matching like the leaders, which was nuts. I remember asking my team, like, where's our lap time? And they're like, don't worry about that.
You're like, but I need to worry about that.
I was like, but I'm worried about it. Where are we lining up? They're like, you're in the back. And I'm like, how far in the back? So we line up 18th on Sunday. Oof. And I literally said, if I want top 10s consistently in Euro Series. Top 10s are my not goal. I don't like setting goals because I feel like I set myself up for failure. But that's kind of like my aim.
Expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I kind of was like, all right, realistically looking at the situation, if I finish 12th or better, I'll be pretty happy. Like, I'll be okay with that. Well, we don't even get, 100 yards past the start-finish line, and the leaders get together, and the field just flew apart. The leader gets spun is my teammate Sebastian, and I would say everyone from like eighth back got a part of it, and obviously we're back there, so we got a part of it, and I hit wheel to wheel with I think Chrysonis, one of the other drivers out there. It was funny. I beefed with him in race one, and then he was like, I apologize, and I was like, you're cool, buddy.
I won't kick your ass. It's okay.
No, well, you can't in there. There's race stewards. It's FIA. You can't beat up people there.
Well, what's the fun in that? Okay,
But-
nope. I'm calling it. Forget this Euro Series deal.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But we, so him and I actually make contact, and that contact ripped the wheel out of my hand, and that's what sprained my wrist. I have a flat tire, nose is all ripped off. I think the toe's knocked out of it. Like, it was beat up. Get back going, and we ended up finishing 12th. So, ironically, the goal that I set for me, we hit it, but at what cost?
Wow.
I told my team, I was like, look, if our bad days are P11 and P12, we're going to be in good shape.
You're doing something right. And for
Yeah.
weekend one, like that,
Yeah.
this is the first showing of the entire season.
Yeah.
And you guys were able to do that. So you've raced in Spain to start the season. And then where do you go here in a couple weeks?
Italy, Vallelunga is the track name. It's right by Rome. So I'll get to go to Rome for a few days, check
great.
that out. But yeah, I'm just excited. I've been running practice laps on it, and I love it. It's just such a unique tour. You know what I mean? The Euro Series.
And getting to meet so many different people on top of, as we already said, getting to see so many different places. That's really cool. Are you doing any part-time stuff here in the States this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing part-time Xfinity, all that stuff. I've done a couple starts this year, and
And you have more than scheduled for the rest of the year?
None scheduled. I'm working on some. I have a couple opportunities that are presenting themselves. It's kind of a week by week basis right now. I'm very fortunate to be in the situation I am because, like I mentioned earlier, I have the starts in Xfinity and trucks, so it puts me in this weird spot where it's like I'm able to kind of get called off the bench, I guess you could say. Which is cool. It's cool to have that, especially in today's driver market. It's cool to be in that like realm of like, all right, we need this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. To be that kind of six man, like
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Being so satisfied with this year and where you're at, where do you want to go though? What do you hope that this year is setting you up for next year? Ideally, if you could have the best scenario for yourself.
So right now I'm aiming to get back into Xfinity. I'm aiming for Xfinity, but I mean, hell, if I do another year of Euro NASCAR, I mean, I'm not putting that off the table. Nothing's off the table for me. Like, I think that's the biggest thing that the last 2 years has kind of showed to me is like I'm still young enough to where I can kind of just say, screw it, let's try this. Screw it, let's do that, right? Like, I mean, I've even explored IMSA. You know what I mean? Like, there's been a lot of things that to me, as a racing driver, I've kind of realized it's like, yeah, like NASCAR is what I know, NASCAR is what I do, but at the end of the day, like, I just want to be in race cars. I don't care if it's an Xfinity, truck, Euro, Cup, Pinty's, Mexico Series, GT3, GT4, whatever it is. Like, I like it. I want to do more and get more experience out of it because to me, having that opportunity behind the wheel, in whatever it may be, it's just another extension of my career.
I'm really proud of you. I'm so
Thank you.
excited for you this year. Yeah, I just like I said, I have always loved keeping up with you and following your career and everything, and then just seeing you so confident and excited and happy. And is as your friend, it's really, really good to see. I'm happy for you.
I am violently happy this year.
I'm excited for you.
So-
Well, before I let you go, do this quick segment with you that I do with everybody.
Yep.
It's called Long Story Short.
Yep.
Because I'm the queen of giving you the longest short story ever.
Yep.
So feel free to do the same.
Okay.
Make this as long or as short as possible,
Okay.
whatever you want. 3 questions for you.
Okay.
First one, when was the last time you cried?
I cry a lot.
Same.
I cry a lot. I watched a movie on the way home from Spain.
Really?
I started tearing up.
On the airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Airplanes don't do that to you, man. Like,
Airplanes
you're on
don't
a
do that.
plane and you're just like
You're
in
in
this
you're in that tube.
of emotion.
You're in
Yeah.
that tube of emotion.
Yeah. And suddenly you're the main character and you're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Like you're watching this. I forgot.
why does my heart hurt?
I just
Yeah.
watch so many movies on. I love those international flights. I
Yeah.
hate them, but I love them. Cause like, I don't buy the Wi-Fi. Every so often I'll pull up some like video notes to watch like practice, but other than that, I'll kick back and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And cry.
Yeah, and cry.
I love that. If you think of the movie, let me know.
I will.
All right. When was the last time that you did something that you just felt an immense amount of pride in?
Oh man. You know, I remember putting together like this whole Euro campaign, right? And like that, like I haven't been full time in years and years and years, since the ARCA days. And so for me to, but that was, part of the D4D program. That was, a lot of, it was this whole thing, right? This is something that I put together on my own.
Yeah.
With the partners that I've been able to build, with Critical Path Security, with 3F Racing, who's trying to, continue building their footing. This is something that I can hang my hat on and say, I, with the many people that I've been able to work, that have helped me along the way, we've been able to build this.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And like I said, I got that mojo back, and that's really fulfilling.
You worked for that.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yep.
you put that together for you.
Yep.
You have
And-
ownership of that.
And I'm doing it my way, which I love.
I love it. Final question for you. What is one piece of media that you would recommend to our viewers? And that could be like a song, it can be a podcast, an account, a video, anything.
I can give you my real answer, but I can't.
Oh.
One piece of media that like I have to watch every time.
Do you listen to podcasts besides Rolling with the
I
Punches?
do. I listen to some when I work.
Song? Do you have a favorite song?
I listen to everything under the sun.
Mm.
Everything under the sun. Like,
Jonas Brothers?
yeah. No. Sorry.
You could have said that a little differently, but that's okay. It's all right.
Man, I mean, there's a couple movies that I look at. I love biopics.
Yeah.
Biopics.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching Battle of the Sexes. That was a really good one. I don't know if you've seen that.
Mm-mm.
Steve Carell and
Oh, that's the tennis one.
yeah, the tennis
Yeah,
one. It's
yeah.
about Billie Jean King. That was a good one.
Yeah, okay.
Really loved Rush. That was a good one. Ford versus
Okay.
Ferrari. That was a good one.
So these like kind of like
I love-
motivational sports.
I like these biopics. Like they're really
Okay.
neat. Like it's neat seeing like, oh damn, that happened. Oh, I loved Disaster Artist. The one about the room.
I haven't.
Yeah,
I clearly need
Do
to.
you know what the room is?
No.
Oh my god, you don't know what the room is?
No.
You don't know what the room is?
Oh no.
Okay, so the
No, I'm
room.
sweating.
So Tommy Wiseau, he's just this dude, and he just has money, and like he just befriends this dude. He's like, I am a film artist. Like he's like, I'm an artist. I'm an unfound person, and we're gonna make a movie together. He made this script that's just like so incohesive, and it's like, it's not good. It is horrible. Like this is one of the worst movies you'll ever see, but it's also incredible because of it.
And this is a movie about them making the movie.
Yeah. So the
Okay.
room is the movie that I'm talking about.
Got it.
Like is like what the movie's about. The
Okay.
movie is going over that.
Got
But
it.
like I can't believe you don't know about the room.
No.
Look up Tommy Wiseau. Look up the room. Like,
Okay. I have some
like-
homework to do.
literally, if you could watch The Disaster Artist, it covers it to a T.
Okay.
Like it's oh my god. Like
Cool.
I still haven't seen the room yet. I
Oh,
want to.
so you're like getting all over me, being like, "Oh, you don't even know what this movie is," and then you're
But
like,
you don't-
"Well,
but
I've
no,
actually
but it's
never
just, like,
watched
it's so
it."
in the
But
public zeitgeist though. Like you should know it.
okay,
Like how like people like hate watched Morbius. Like even though it was so bad, it became like a thing.
okay, that's how the room is.
That's how the room is.
Got it. Well, come back and talk about all your adventures in Rome.
That sounds good. We'll
Go
do
take
that.
a look at the statue of David? Who's the naked guy in Rome? Is he in Rome? I
There's
don't
a
know.
naked guy.
Yeah, you know the naked guy, the statue?
There's a naked guy.
Yeah.
What,
It's
there's a
art.
statue.
Yeah. David? Anybody? I don't
Statue
know.
of David. Isn't
Yeah.
that in France?
You'll learn. I would like to say that the on-site fact-checking department here at Roland Media was able to confirm that the naked man I was talking about was in fact David, the statue of David, and he also is in fact in Italy. So I was correct. That is your Roland history lesson for the week. Thank you for coming. No, if you're listening to this podcast the week that it came out, Ryan is racing this upcoming weekend in Valencia. So be sure to follow him on social media to see how he does and just keep up with him for the remainder of the Euro Series season. As always, I will put all of Ryan's socials and his recommendations down below, even though he hasn't even seen the movie he recommended or something like that. I don't know. Could you keep up? I tried. Speaking of keeping up, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page because you're gonna want to keep up with all the content that we have coming your way, including the vintage shopping series that I mentioned a little bit earlier. I think that's all I got for you guys. Be sure to follow us on social. I love you. I appreciate you. Esso, thank you so much for all of your hard work this week. It truly takes a village over here. Mom, thanks for listening. I love you as always. Thank you all for listening. I love you as always. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye.